Deleting every account, watching the app icon disappear from the home screen and feeling for one moment like a hero. That feeling is the trap. Not because deletion is wrong, because the feeling itself tells you nothing about whether you just did something brave or whether you just did something scared. And most people who wipe their digital life clean never bother to ask which one it was. They assume relief means victory. It does not. Relief is not evidence. Relief is just what happens when pressure stops, regardless of whether the pressure was making you stronger or keeping you honest. Here is the sentence that will make half of you close this video in irritation. Deleting your accounts is not automatically an act of strength, and staying on them is not automatically an act of weakness. Somewhere in the comments below, someone is already typing their disagreement. Good. Type it. Because the answer to which one you did is not something I can hand you in the next few minutes. It is something you already know, buried under a story you told yourself to make the decision feel clean. Let's build the actual mechanism first, the one your intuition skipped past. Researchers running controlled studies, the kind where one group cuts social platforms and another group keeps using them exactly as before, keep landing on the same pattern. The group that stepped away reports better sleep within days. Mood scores shift upward. Self-image, measured through simple comparative surveys, improves measurably. Anxiety, particularly the low hum of anxiety that never quite announces itself as a crisis, drops. This is not folklore. Behavioral researchers see this pattern surface again and again, and the mechanism behind it has a name most people never learn: social comparison. Every scroll through a feed is an uninvited comparison exercise, run without your consent dozens of times a day, comparing your unfiltered Tuesday afternoon against someone else's curated highlight reel. Call it behavioral physics if you want the technical term for it. Attention pulled toward a comparison it never agreed to make in the first place. Your brain does not know the reel is curated. It just registers that you are, apparently, losing. Remove the feed, and you remove the constant losing. That part is real. That part is not up for debate. But here is where the protocol most people build for themselves collapses, and where the tactical version begins. Used correctly, distance from a feed is a weapon aimed at comparison itself. Used carelessly, that same weapon turns in your hand and aims at the last thread of contact you had left. Deletion as a decision has a direction. Every choice a person makes under emotional pressure moves either toward something or away from something, and those two directions can look absolutely identical from the outside, while meaning something completely different on the inside. A person can delete their accounts and walk directly into a fuller life, more calls to old friends, more unstructured time, more silence that gets filled with a book or a walk instead of a scroll. That is movement toward. Clinical psychologists who work with withdrawal and isolation patterns describe a second, quieter version. A person deletes their accounts and walks directly into an emptier room. No calls replace the scrolling. No new silence gets filled with anything at all. The apps were not the cause of the isolation. They were the last thin thread still connecting an already isolated person to any human contact whatsoever, however shallow, however filtered, however imperfect. Cut that thread, and instead of protection, you get a sealed room with no visible walls. This is the part advertiser-friendly wellness content almost never says out loud, because it complicates a tidy narrative, and tidy narratives get more shares than honest ones. Sometimes leaving is the treatment. Sometimes leaving is the symptom wearing a costume that looks exactly like the treatment. So how does a psychologically literate person actually tell the difference in their own life without a clinician sitting across from them asking the follow-up questions? Phase 1. Ask what you are moving toward, specifically, by name, before you touch the delete button. Not a vague feeling of peace, a name. A person you will call more. An activity you will resume. A room in your life you will actually walk into. If your honest answer is a blank space, a shrug, a general sense that things will simply feel quieter, pause there. Quiet is not automatically healthy. Quiet can be the sound of a door closing on the last remaining exit. Phase 2. Track the shape of your week for a short stretch before you decide anything permanent. Not your mood, your contact. How many times did another human being's voice, in person or on a call, reach you today? If social platforms are currently your only source of that contact, however weak a source they are, deleting them without first building a replacement is not detox. It is amputation without anesthesia. The correct sequence is never removal first, replacement never. It is replacement first, removal following naturally once the replacement is already load-bearing. Every unreplaced hour of scrolling left in its place afterward is a quiet payment made straight back to the isolation you were trying to escape. Phase 3. Watch what fills the gap in the first several days, honestly, without editing the story afterward to make yourself look decisive. If the freed-up hours get absorbed by a different form of avoidance, a different screen, a different numbing loop, you have not neutralized the mechanism. You have relocated it. True disengagement from comparison culture shows up as increased engagement with something else, something that pushes back, something with texture, a conversation, a physical task, a commitment that requires your continued presence. If nothing rises to fill the space itself becomes the new symptom. This is where the shield metaphor earns its place, and not as decoration. Psychological armor is not built by removing every source of friction from your environment. Real armor is built by strengthening what is underneath the friction, so that friction stops being able to reach you. A person who has done that inner work can rejoin a platform, scroll past a stranger's curated highlight reel, and feel nothing but mild indifference. A person who has not done that inner work can delete every account they own and still carry the exact same vulnerability into their offline hours, just with fewer places for it to visibly leak out. The armor was never the app or the absence of the app. The armor is the internal structure that decides how much power any external comparison gets to hold over you. Deploy that structure correctly, and you neutralize the comparison before it ever lands. That structure is precisely what a channel built around holding your ground, rather than simply running from discomfort, is designed to keep reinforcing, which is exactly why staying subscribed here functions less like following content and more like keeping a second set of eyes on your own blind spots. Notice something about both failure modes we just walked through. The person who stays glued to a feed out of habit and the person who deletes everything out of panic are, underneath the surface behavior, doing the same thing. Both are reacting. Neither has stopped to ask the diagnostic question. Reacting to discomfort by staying is not virtue. Reacting to discomfort by leaving is not automatically virtue either. The only version of this that qualifies as strength is the version where a person pauses long enough to name their direction, toward or away, before their hand moves at all. There is a second layer clinicians flag that almost never makes it into the popular version of this conversation. Deletion can become its own addictive cycle. A person deletes, feels a rush of clarity, rejoins weeks later out of loneliness, feels the old comparison spiral return, deletes again, and repeats this loop for years, mistaking each deletion for progress when it is actually the same unresolved need for connection wearing a different disguise each time. If this pattern sounds familiar, the app was never your real opponent. The unmet need underneath it was, and it is still there, patiently waiting through every deletion and every return. So before you touch that button today, or before you feel proud of having already touched it last month, ask the one question this entire protocol has been built around: toward or away? Say the honest answer out loud, even if no one else hears it. That single word is the checkmate move in this entire protocol. Everything else is just positioning. If it is toward, you already have what you need and the deletion will hold. If it is away, do not delete yet. Build the toward first. Let the away take care of itself once it no longer has anywhere left to hide. Keep your armor where it belongs, on the inside, reinforced by what you build rather than by what you remove. And never let a feed, present or absent, be the one holding the strings that move you.